Hello across all of my social media platforms. This is JJ Hardy with Victory Leadership Coaching, here with my one training participant, but it doesn't have to stay that way, Hannah. And we're going to talk a little bit about difficult conversations with employees. As soon as I put my phone on silent. Okay. Okay. So what do I mean by a difficult conversation with an employee? So really, it's just about anything that could be positive or negative that is uncomfortable to do. So, what do I mean by uncomfortable? I'm glad you asked. I will tell you. So, uncomfortable could mean maybe somebody screwed up or made a minor mistake, and you have to approach them to do a little bit of teaching and coaching. And if it's bad enough, like maybe they were 45 minutes late for work, maybe a little bit of counseling as well with a write up. Or maybe, somebody did something really, really great, but this person's not always the easiest person to talk to. So just jumping outside of your comfort zone to have a conversation with that person could be the difficult conversation that I'm referring to. And there are many scenarios. I would say another one would be somebody who's irate. That's very difficult. And for that one, all I'm going to really say because it's a whole other topic, is that you have to have the personal courage to do the right thing to de-escalate yourself, especially if you're in a public arena and those people are representing your business, because without de-escalating it, all you're going to do is hurt your business. So you have to de-escalate, remove that person from the situation, and have a conversation. Because if you don't, it's going to have negative, uh, a negative effect on your work environment and probably with your other employees and customers as well. So let's go to the other ones. So when you are, I like to focus on people who are first time leaders. So this is the very basic level of having a difficult conversation. Really, any time that you have to do something that's engaging with another person in the workplace, it's kind of hard. And I'm acknowledging that. And I'm acknowledging that because not everybody does. They just expect that you're going to do it. And that's an unrealistic expectation unless you're told that you need to do it. And so if somebody does something well, it's very important when you are the supervisor, the manager, or if you're a small business, maybe a business owner, to walk up to them and say, "That's great. Thank you very much for doing that. You've been going above and beyond for so long. That's great." If you talk to some other people in my network, I have some HR partners, both locally and in my online network. They will say that it's important to set up a reward system. So if you're like a supervisor or an entry level manager, then maybe that's going to be difficult for you because you're going to have to engage your higher ups and start having a conversation about, maybe if there's already one there, asking how that works. And then that that's going to be hard because you're going to have to publicly present that acknowledgement to that person so that everybody else will see it. And that part is important too. But that's not really a part of the difficult conversation. That's just having a public presence. So that'll also be a separate conversation. But let's go ahead and jump to what everybody is thinking about when they think of a difficult conversation, and that's acknowledging that there are people in your business or maybe on your team that make mistakes. And mistakes are only opportunities to learn. I don't think any of us outside of high school and college can really say that they regret all of their mistakes. And it's important that those mistakes are made because we need the coaching, we need the training, and we all need to improve. Now, you'll see it in the comments, but I'm going to elaborate on this. When you take the opportunity to provide some coaching and training to another person who's not doing as well as they should be doing, or maybe they're just not they're not really understanding. Sorry, the country boy comes out every once in a while. I need to take a step back and be more professional. But they're not really, they don't have a complete understanding of the task, or maybe the grouping of tasks, or the spreadsheet, or whatever they're supposed to be working on. And it's time now that you have to approach that person and have a conversation about it. So there's a dual benefit here. It's not just development for the person that you're approaching. Okay? It's also development for you. If you have that feeling that's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. Well, it's okay to have that feeling, but you need to step outside of your comfort zone and just make it happen. You, as a leader, a servant to the workplace, somebody who has their heart and their mind on the mission, the betterment of other people, you owe it to that employee to go up and let them know what's going on, talk about a plan of action to improve. And maybe that plan of action is just with you for you to stand there with them, sit there with them, whatever the case, and just go over the material, answer questions they have, help that person become better. And if it's more than just one conversation, go back and forth. Don't just be a dictator and start telling them you're doing this wrong. This is what you need to do. No, ask them what they feel like they need improvement doing, and be a real coach. I'm not saying that because that's my job right now. I am saying that because in every workplace, whether you're a business owner, a supervisor, team leader, manager, whatever, there should be a little bit of teaching all the time, a little bit of coaching all the time, and a little bit of mentoring all the time. And the reason those three things need to be in place, well, let me elaborate on that. So teaching is when you have the knowledge that another person needs and you provide that knowledge to them. You regurgitate that knowledge to them. Coaching is having a conversation about that information that you just gave them and figuring out how it fits for that person so that they can implement it in their way, not just the textbook way, because every mind works differently. And that mentor aspect of everything is, now I taught this person, I've coached them through the implementation. Now, every once in a while, I need to check in with this person to make sure they understand what we've just gone over together. And now that they've been doing the job, make sure they're doing it well, in their opinion and your opinion, and how you can benefit them and maybe do a little bit more teaching and coaching. So the mentor is always there. Always there. That's also why it's important to make sure that as a leader, you're staying on top of your craft, because if you're not, then you're not going to be able to do any of this. And that's basically it. So a difficult conversation is whenever you have to approach somebody that it's hard for whatever reason. You get that feeling in the pit of your stomach and you're like, I don't want to upset that person. I don't want to hurt that person's feelings. I don't want them to get mad at me. Don't want them to holler at me. Whatever the case, it doesn't matter. But whenever you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, and just like anything with success, you always have something holding you back. But it's important to move past that in the interest of your team, in the interest of your people, because if you don't, then you're not going to grow to the level that you need to be a constant teacher, coach, and mentor in your business and in your life. Because if you ever grow and have kids or anything like that, it's the same thing at home. You need to do this on a regular basis. And in addition to that, a mentor, somebody, you should never say you know it all. There's a fine line there. But if you have a decent understanding of something, you're always checking in and making sure that if someone needs help with something, that you're helping them. That covers all my bullet points. Yes. What do you think, Hannah?
No, that was good. Always, it's always good. Um, it it brings to mind. So I posted on Facebook, or not. I did a reel. I don't know the difference. I'm old. Um, and I was talking about growing and learning and everything, and it's so true because even 6 months ago, JJ, I had somebody on my team say something to me, and the old me would have just not even responded because I am non-confrontational. I want people to like me. And it was just like, and I had to take it to my mentor and I said, what do I say to this person? Because the old me would have ignored it. But I'm trying to build a business. I'm trying to be a leader. What do I do? And that just asking for help was a huge step for me. And so,
It's true.
yeah.
Vulnerability is extremely important. Oh, vulnerability is extremely important. Well, I mean, if you think about it, if if you're having difficulty going and having that conversation, then that means maybe not everybody, but a lot of people that you work with are probably going to have difficulty with thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble, or maybe I'm going to do something wrong, maybe I'm going to make a mistake. But not highlight if you don't highlight that mistake as a bad thing. And maybe you just also, that's why when you go to a lot of these corporate companies, they highlight those mistakes as opportunities. Because if it's an opportunity, then that means there's light at the end of the tunnel. And if you can't acknowledge that with your team or your employees, then how are you going to acknowledge those opportunities for yourself? And being vulnerable, Hannah, like what you mentioned, is a very big part of that. I see we have a couple people watching. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. So thank you for acknowledging that. Vulnerability helps everything.
Yeah. I mean, how else do you grow?
That's right. Well, if you don't ever take the time to say, I need help or I need to improve, and if you're letting your ego get in the way, and that ego is not always, in the form of being arrogant. Sometimes that ego is you saying, I don't want to be wrong and I'm scared of being wrong. So it comes off as howdy touty or arrogant or however you want to say that, because a lot of people, they don't think that their managers will admit that they're wrong. But if you are a manager or a business owner and you are vulnerable to the point where you're able to admit to your people that you make mistakes, but you're also coaching them through theirs, that brings a whole new level of respect, and respect creates influence. And that goes back to the servant leader mindset, which I'll be talking about again at 1 with Chris. So I'm really excited about that.
Nice.
But yeah. So it's important to acknowledge all of those things. You have to always have people's best interest at heart when you're doing anything and everything. And that's not just in your business or in your job. It's also, when you're out in public. I mean, if you see somebody that needs help, maybe you're taller and they need help grabbing something off the top shelf of the grocery store. All good things come back to you in time.
Mm-hmm.
And also with your family. We're all guilty of getting crazy at home with our family. But it's important to acknowledge that that's probably the most important place to practice these things.
Absolutely.
Yes. Cool. So I didn't even look before here because I just got back from a networking event. But are you making some headway on the course, or where are you?
No.
You
No,
sound
I
like
haven't.
me on my licensure.
I know. I was talking to Jarek yesterday, and I was like, I think I bit off more than I can chew, and I have just overwhelmed myself.
Yeah. Well, it's important to be able to identify that. And, I'm not giving you a hard time publicly on purpose. I
No,
was just
you're fine.
asking.
I know. I know. Oh, but
Cool.
I do want to jump back in. And then, okay, you touched on this, but I'm going to ask anyway because
Yes.
it has always confused me. So, coaching and mentoring, they're not the same thing.
No, mentoring, mentors are usually there, and they are there for people to typically reach out to, but it's also the mentor's job, especially if you've had somebody talk to you and you're being identified as their mentor,
Mm-hmm.
for you to reach back out to them. And it's not, so the teaching part and the coaching part, that's kind of intertwined. So you're regurgitating the information and then you're helping them implement it. So once they start going off and doing that job on their own, there's probably going to be some more teaching and coaching that comes later.
Mm-hmm.
But the mentor part is when you are constantly checking in with them to make sure that they don't need help with something.
Okay.
Being that, again, a big part of being a mentor is making sure you stay on top of your craft. So for you, that's insurance and finances. And for me, that's leadership and not screwing up my family. So, which I don't think I'll ever do, but you got to make sure you stay on top of everything, because if somebody does come to you and they've identified you as a mentor and you don't have an answer, or you don't have somebody in that you can reach out to get an answer for them, and you just kind of let their needs fall to the wayside, then you're not going to be looked at as that mentor anymore. You're going to be looked at as, well, I work for that person, but they don't really know what they're doing.
Okay.
And it's important to know what you're doing especially if somebody has identified you as that. I know that's kind of them putting you on a pedestal that you didn't necessarily choose to be on. But if we're there to serve and we want to help, then keeping yourself sharp is not necessarily a bad thing either.
Right. Okay.
And I know I've watched your reel last night and I enjoyed it. It was great. It was a great call out to make sure that we have to keep learning and growing.
I don't know. I was like, I better hit record on this.
It was like an aha moment.
It was.
That's great.
And people seem to watch them, so.
Well, yeah. You're having some success on social media. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. Well, I think we'll end the live cast, but I'm trying to get away from selling as often on these live casts, but since this is a very specific call that anyone can have access to, I want to make sure I highlight that if you go to victoryleadershipcoaching.com and go to the leadership training service, which is a membership, which is on the main page, the last link, then you can be a part of this call too. And there's no judgment on this call. It's all about learning and growing. And the more people we have, the more we can learn from each other and grow as a team, because that's what it's all about. So it's $60 a month. I think that more people spend more money on lunch and coffee than they do that $60 in a month. And if you're going to make yourself better, instead of putting all that garbage in your body, maybe that's better. I've been guilty of it before, but anyway, I'm probably guilty of it now. Call me anything but late for dinner. Anyway, so everybody have a great and blessed weekend, and I'll see you next week, or you'll see me probably every day because I like doing my live streams.